What's up, everybody? Michael Johnson here with the Business Choreography Podcast, and I'm excited you joined me today because we have a very special guest. Today, we have none other than Mark Donnigan. Today, he is going to be talking with us about some of the coolest stuff that he does. He builds technology companies as a virtual CMO and business consultant, starting his career as a seller and advancing to sales leadership while bridging to marketing and business strategy functions. Mark is a revenue-first marketer who has produced $500 million in revenue and enterprise value for the companies he's worked with. Holy cow. We're so lucky to have him today and glean as much of his wisdom and journey as we can. So let me cue the intro and we'll jump right in. Listen, there's a lot to learn when growing and scaling your business.
That's why we created the Business Choreography Podcast, where we talk about choreographing your marketing, operations, and sales into dynamic systems that increase your revenue and your impact.
We'll explore solid business principles and discuss all things that make businesses dance to success with clarity.
We'll help you figure out where the holes are in your business and what you can do to fix them. Think of us as your official business choreographers, aka your insider growth strategists.
Remember, your choreography matters. Welcome to the Business Choreography Podcast. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super stoked that you're here and that we get to talk to you about your journey and all the cool stuff that you're up to today. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here, Michael, on Business Choreography. I love the name. I love it. You know, business is choreography.
It is.
And marketing and go-to-market, that's like the primary dance. So
I love that. I was going to ask you about it, but you jumped right in and said it.
I'm not even a dancer, but I certainly get the alliteration there. So
I love
it's
that.
awesome.
I love that. Yeah, choreography is near and dear to our hearts, and we believe everybody needs it in
Absolutely.
so many ways. And so for that reason, we've got you here so that you can talk with us about some of the choreography you've been up to over the years.
Good stuff.
I want to start with your backstory and really dig in from the beginning to see how you got to this point, how you're doing the things that you're doing today. You're serving the industry so well and doing some incredible stuff. And I'd love to hear about that journey because I feel like it's so helpful for so many entrepreneurs and business owners just to hear about others' journey because it does feel lonely a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, isn't it a challenge because we see online, whether it's just through social media or, all these gurus that have their courses and their programs and, it paints a picture, right? That I find, not always, but most of the time is completely out of sync with real life.
Right.
So yeah. So, how did I get to what I'm doing today? Well, let's see. At 12 years old, my uncle actually, even though my dad was an electrical engineer and ended up retiring at Hewlett Packard and was working around chip design and chip manufacturing. So I grew up in a very, I think when I was probably, I was 9, I was no older than 10 years old. And he sat me down and, he didn't say, well, son, it's time to go get a fishing rod and we're going to go fishing. He started teaching me Ohm's law.
Nice.
So I could design electrical circuits, very simple, of course. But anyway, all that to say at 12 years old, my uncle gave me a book on programming and this language called BASIC. Now that dates me, but I started programming, stayed after school, playing with my school's Apple II and, eventually of course got a computer at home and everything was good.
Right.
Ended up, going into a computer science program, because, hey, that's what you do, right? I'm computer science just makes sense. Right. And I realized after a couple of years, I was spending more time playing music and dreaming of being a rock star than actually studying. So even though my grades weren't that bad, but it was just like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to sit and pound code all day. So went to music school. And I'm connecting to the journey, but the first takeaway here is I have this left brain, right brain thing going on.
Absolutely.
And it turns out that that's a superpower in marketing. It really is, because especially with all the digital platforms and digital strategies, there's a very heavy analytical component At the same time, we're still very much it's an art, and talking to the market and understanding the market can't always be quantified to a number, or some metric or some, clearly defined. So went to music school. And to be honest, obviously I never made it to be a rock star, unfortunately.
You sure?
But, well, I was, I did end up, playing at a pretty nice level and had a little studio. And so I had a lot of fun, for myself. But in music school, I realized that here were these players around me who were just, I went to a pretty good school. Some were just absolute world class, and later some of them became very professional, playing on big tours and all that. But most of them did not. Most were driving school buses and working at McDonald's. Nothing wrong with that. I just had bigger dreams.
Right.
So I'd been working my way through college, doing sales, managing an Apple retail store. Actually, I was just selling there, but eventually went and worked for an audio store, managed that. Had a lot of fun. Went, whoa, like, when you're in sales, you get commission. And if you sell more, you make more money. And besides, I get to talk about all this cool stuff that I like. And, and I'm like a technologist. So went down this whole sales path. And I discovered early on that I was at first it was completely like, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was doing my own marketing. I'm working in very small companies. It's not like there's a marketing team. And even if there was one or two marketers, it was sort of dependent on me, to really make it happen.
Sure.
And, and again, this is that left brain, right brain just began to merge. And I started realizing, wow, there's a lot of power when you can amplify your voice with marketing. And when you combine that with strategy, when you take a little time to really think about, why you're saying the things you say and what moves the market. And when you understand that, that drives revenue. And, over time, my career started moving more into like business development. I got involved in startups, and in a startup, marketing, sales, business development, in some settings just kind of all merges together.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, that just brought me into this world. And I guess, as a saying goes, you look back and, on one hand, it's like, wow, it was sort of a random set of steps that got me to where I'm going. And yet also every step absolutely made sense, Right. So, fast forward to today, I work with companies, really pretty much exclusively, technology startups, but generally startups that are a little bit further down the road. So They have reached what, we commonly call product market fit.
Right.
And they're kind of either getting into their growth stage or they're in a growth stage and they're just now needing to, okay, how do we put fuel on the fire? How do we scale up? I'm having a great time. I work with technical founders. I just work with, great people doing really interesting things, and, we're having a lot of fun. So.
I love that. I hear behind that journey, I can hear that there were a lot of different experiences along the way and a lot of different paths that were taken. There's always this crazy winding road to get us to where we're headed. But I love the way that you've merged together the technical knowledge that you've had and being able to help on the other side so that you could do both of the things that you love doing. Yeah. What do you find thus far in your journey of working with those technical founders? What have you found has moved the needle more than others when you're talking about marketing and doing that type of stuff for those technical founders?
Yeah. So, we all know the failure statistic of startups, and it's pretty depressing. I have heard depressing because of how high it is. And, I've heard a lot of people say, you kind of need to be certifiably crazy to be a startup founder. Right. If in the face of all of this, you still go for it. And I really have a firm belief that that failure rate doesn't need to be as high as it is. The implication, and there's certain settings where, there's, in a really weird way, there's almost a little bit of a badge of honor, that, I've had 3 failures, but then 1 breakaway success, and the badge of honor is as much in the 3 failures as the 1 success. And we can talk about the fact that, absolutely, I think we all can relate just in life, our failures, although a lot of times we wouldn't want to go back and repeat, what happened, you think about how that set us up, right? And that applies to entrepreneurship, I fully believe. But my statement about I approach marketing and I approach the work I do with my clients in that there are a lot of common mistakes that I see, and they are maybe mistakes the wrong word. It's assumptions. And so here's an assumption that can be totally avoided. The assumption is that my product, my technology, my solution, my service, my fill in the blank is so great, the world is going to beat a path to my door. Put another way, yes, we're entering a heavily contested market. There's a lot of competitors, but you know what? We're going to be 20% cheaper and we're going to get all the business. Or we're 20% faster and we're going to get all the business, because white people, that'd be crazy to use the other guy's product, know? Exactly. And there's variations of this, right? Well, the problem is that intuitively, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be in technology, whatever industry that you are in. And, and I encourage, the listeners right now, just think about the industry you're in and think about companies that maybe you directly competed with or that you know about who truly had a better product, better solution. In other words, truly, like it wasn't just hype, like it was better, and they failed. And how the leader in your space probably certainly has good things about their product, but they may have massive holes. And everybody walks around going, those guys, they're, 5 years, they're gone. And yet 5 years are stronger than ever. Why is that?
Right.
So if it's true that all it takes is, better, faster, cheaper, well, then business would actually be really easy, right?
Right.
But we have examples all around us of where that's not true. And what's cool about this for me is that marketing is often the answer. And so a lot of times I'm getting involved with a company who's at kind of one of, 2 or 3 or 4 different places. One, it's a technical founder. They've spent their career, maybe working for a really big company. Maybe they came out of Google or Facebook or, Apple but they were like an engineering leader or they were a product person. And, let's face it, when you're inside Apple, like the Apple brand is so powerful. I mean, It's just, it's a planetary system, right? And I'm not suggesting that there's absolutely sales and marketing happening. But the point is that, I work with founders who are kind of like, if I'm honest, I never even thought about the fact that I worked at Google and anything I put out there just started getting used because it was Google. Now I started my startup and I'm going, how come nobody's signing up? At Google, I'd put this out and we'd have 5 million users already. Right. And I'm not saying people aren't so naive to assume they could just go start a company. But I mean, and so that's one. And then they usually contact me and it's like, hey, Mark, we really need help. Look, I'm a domain expert, I'm an engineer, but boy, I don't really know marketing, So I get involved there. The other category that I see where companies trip up is they do understand they need marketing, but they don't know how to invest in it. So they don't know what's needed. So, they just simply mishire. And the problem is that business, getting back to choreography, it really, there is choreography. And the idea that I need to hire and I'm using air quotes, marketing person, as if that's hey, just, ask ChatGPT, please write a job description for and then you interview and you're like, I think this Mark guy is kind of a nice guy. He's easy to talk to, seems smart. Let's hire him, The problem is that I could be world class, but I'm not world class in what you need.
Right.
So I come into your company and I'm just flipping this around as if I was one of these mismatched candidates, So I come in and all of a sudden, we're 6 months down the road and you as the founder, the CEO is kind of scratching your head going, we don't really know what's wrong because Mark seems really smart. He clearly knows marketing, but like, where's the business? I have to be honest about the impact. It's not happening. So that's one mistake. So then I get called in sometimes to, maybe augment, advise. And sometimes, they end up exiting, the person realizes themselves like, this isn't a good match here. And they part ways, right? Then there is a third category. Now this one's a little bit interesting that I run into. And it is, so let's say I have a SaaS company, so I'm building the next great MarTech, marketing technology platform. And I truly have a really good idea, and so I built this, the team's been grinding on it for 2 years and we've got some initial market validation and all right, I know I need marketing. I'm going to go find someone out of Salesforce. Better yet, HubSpot. Oh, maybe I could get someone from Marketo. That would be amazing. And they are going to crush it. So so I've raised some money so I can afford to, I actually can afford to bring someone in from one of those companies who's probably coming from a pretty highly paid position. We go get a recruiter. We go through this long process. Finally, we get somebody. We announce to the board. We announce to the company. There's all this fanfare. Person comes in. Boy, the first 30 days, it's just like, wow, I'm going to go buy a Ferrari because my stock for sure in 6 months is going to be, and then you get to 6 months and it's the same thing. Like what happened? We're not seeing the results. And what you're getting back from that person is, well, I need a budget. I told you it's $2 million just to start to build the team. And I need another $1 million to do events. And, we haven't even talked about digital, really to be in the game, we need to spend $100,000 a month. And you're telling me we don't have the budget. So what do you expect me to do? And the founder's like scratching their head going, but you came out of, and again, mismatch, right? But it's a different kind of mismatch. It's a mismatch where it's somebody, both parties very well intentioned, the person did not misrepresent themselves. They actually did the things they did, but they had a 50-person marketing team behind them. They had $15 million to spend on digital. They had, and of course they knew they weren't going to have 15 million at the startup, but they figured, well, surely you're going to give me at least to start 50 grand a month, and the founder's like, we really stretched to get them at their salary. And, and so then I get called in as well. And sometimes it's, they're scratching their head going, we don't know what happened. And then we have to walk through the process of like, well, it's simply, it's a stage of your company development mismatch. And, right. And so the good news is this. So, so there's sort of bad news and all that. And, if any listeners like, oh no, like I'm right in the middle of one of those, take action quickly. But there are solutions and you can recover. Where it gets dangerous and where companies, in my opinion, just my observation, end up not making it is where they keep persisting, with a strategy. So, well, maybe that person from HubSpot just, maybe we need to go find someone from, and they go find someone from, Zoho, go find someone, and I'm just randomly picking names. So I'm not, but it's like, but no, it's the same problem. So, so we're looking for, we just, in all of our businesses as entrepreneurs, we have to be very conscious of, the stage we're in, the kinds of people that we need, and then also what is realistic to execute on. And that's what I do. That's really one of my superpowers, is bringing all of that together so that, we can get the right person initially, or the right people executing the right playbook, doing the right things that are stage that are, that are spot on for the stage that you're in. And then when you do that, and when you do it with intent, I just have found that success becomes a little easier.
Right. Right. You alluded to this idea and concept of branding versus marketing. And, there's a number of people talking about this in today's climate. But let's chat a little bit more about that from your perspective. What are the differences between the branding side of it that say Apple's doing and the marketing that everybody else maybe that isn't Apple has to?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's such a good question and so easy to get trapped into. I was talking to someone just earlier today, and I made the observation that traditionally marketing fell into this trap of like, well, if we get questioned about the ROI on something we want to do, the answer is, well, think how good it's going to be for those 50,000 attendees at that conference to see our brand all over the banners in the convention center.
Right.
And now, even when I say that, I hope that most listeners are kind of like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? And yet most marketing even today is validated with a methodology that isn't any more complex than that. Right. Like how can we measure that? Well, but if we don't do that, the industry might think that we've gone away. Really? Right. And so that's like branding. Now, again, stage specific, right? So clearly the way that a Coca-Cola, and that's an extreme example, but the way that a Coca-Cola markets is very different than the way that Red Bull marketed 25 years ago, right? When it was a whole new category. And by the way, I use that example because guess what? Red Bull built a category of energy drink and that's how they became just a massive, success and behemoth that they are, based on a overly sugary, sweet, based on a drink that, let's face it, when that first came out, did the average person say, I'm really looking for some, like that's what I want. I think there were probably some people that sampled that maybe even today and they're like, oh, what is this? I can't drink this. And yet, look, they built a category. So they didn't try and go after Coke. That would have been ridiculous, right? So they set themselves apart and they built a category. And that's the beautiful thing about being a startup, being new, building something new, is that you actually not only have permission, but in my opinion, you almost don't have a choice, but to position yourself as a part. And entrepreneurs are so scared of this because they're so afraid. Yeah, but I, I need as many sales as I can get. And if I do that, maybe like this small group over here that I could possibly sell to is going to think that we don't have a product for them. And I don't want them to think that. And so what ends up happening is you end up shotgunning. Your message is totally diffused. No one in the market knows what you do. And then, they're just like, well, there's Coke over here. But Red Bull comes and says, hey, when you need to be a little pick-me-up at 4 p.m., before you drive an hour and a half home on your commute or whatever the scenario is, or before you drive 2 states over to go see your grandma, drink a Red Bull. It's an energy drink.
Right. And
a whole sector was built out of that, a whole category. And now guess what? Arguably they're the category king or queen, of that entire sector. They're competing apart. Nobody, assumes that they're competing with Coca-Cola.
Absolutely.
Both sugary, sweet drinks, right?
Right.
Carbonated, all that. So.
Well, and I believe in the beginning, it was very much so that they sampled it and people were like, this is disgusting.
This is disgusting.
You don't want this. Like, this is gross. Yeah. And most businesses at that stage of the game, if they got that information back, would have tucked their tail between their legs and ran away.
Or they would have gone and changed their formula. They would have gone in this whole product development cycle, like, oh, we don't have something. And I work really exclusively in technology, and so I love also the example of how Steve Jobs introduced the iPod. And what he did was after he defined, like a music player, he held it up. Well, actually, no, he held up and he called it 1,000 songs in your pocket. Now, what's super interesting is that Apple was not first. You could go into, I think back even then, you'd go into like Kmart's and Walmart's and they had a shelf with MP3 players, but they were just these nondescript, ugly. It said like 64 megabytes, 128 megabyte, like the consumer, and maybe it would say like holds roughly 100 songs or 200 songs or, like they had done some basic math, right? So the consumer could sort of map, but that was it. And they all were almost the same price. It kind of all looked the same. They were, that's how they're sold. Steve Jobs holds up this beautiful white, just beautiful object, with this dial wheel, this little display. And he says 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that created the category, And then what happens? Apple just runs away with the profits. So all those other guys selling those, those just completely nondescript, generic, they're still on the shelf, but like, who's going to buy that?
Exactly.
Yeah, a small number of people, right? But who owns the category? Apple. And now Apple, Apple's done it. Well, they've done it many times, but you think about the iPhone. I heard a statistic just a couple days ago. iPhone profits in the smartphone sector, Apple gets 84% profit, 84%. And that's why every phone, mobile phone out there kind of looks like an iPhone, shares the same design. It all, like everybody's copying, and Apple just runs away. And important, it's profit, not revenue. Obviously the revenue then is very high, right? But it's profit, because of course there's a scenario where you could have very high revenue, but maybe you're not making any money. No, 84% of all the profit generated in the smartphone category accrues to Apple. And who is a $3 trillion company? Apple. And so there's lessons to learn in this for even for those of us that are just running, small 5-person, 10-person, 20-person companies. Maybe we have aspirations to grow huge. Maybe we're just saying, hey, I don't mind being small, but I'd like to make more money and grow my influence, etc. Great
Absolutely.
lessons. It's fully transferable.
Sure.
Everything we talked about that Apple did and does can be transferred to a solopreneur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how people can find you. You've inspired some listeners today to take some action, move forward. How can they find you? How can they get connected and move forward with the stuff that you're doing?
Love it. Yeah, love to connect with other entrepreneurs, startup founders, other marketers. Love to exchange notes. I'm all about collaboration. 2 really good ways to find me, reach me. I am all over LinkedIn. Mark Donnigan. You will find me.
Nice.
Type my name in the search bar. I put a lot of stuff up, on my profile, but my website actually is a great resource. It's growth stage. So all one word, growthstage.marketing. So it's a marketing domain. And I've got a lot of, everything's free up there, of course, but, I've got some really nice mini books, some on the very topics that we talked about or touched on anyway. So yeah, I hope that people could find some good resources.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you putting those together for us and giving us something to go check out. And even better that you've made them free resources for us to take a look at. This is a great way for everybody to get in and get involved and be able to take the first steps. It's very, very easy for you to go do that. So we appreciate you putting that together for us, Mark.
Sure.
And before we head out today, any last words of wisdom that you can leave with our audience?
Yeah, I think so. I'll keep my words of wisdom focused, around marketing. Marketing today is both gotten more complex and it's gotten simpler. And I'll keep this short. It's gotten more complex in that there is just a myriad of channels that we can advertise on, that we can push content to, that we can, and every channel has its own strategy and there's someone out there to show you exactly how to do, Facebook ads or LinkedIn or, SEO and on and on and on. Right. And so that can be incredibly overwhelming. Really, really overwhelming, especially if, you're at a smaller stage and you don't have a big team and maybe you only have one marketer, maybe you're a founder doing the marketing. So that can be totally overwhelming. Where it's gotten easier, or how you can make it easier is this. Go to first principles. Look carefully at how your buyers buy. How do they find solutions like yours? Where do they hang out? And by hang out, I mean, and maybe for some businesses that's in the real world, physical, it could be digital. A lot of times it's both, right? But where do they hang out? And if you just find ways to add value in those areas, those places that your target audience, and by the way, I really like thinking of them as an audience, not as a prospective customer, not as a target, but an audience. If you add value, naturally, they're going to seek you out when they have a need, as long as they know what you do. Now, of course, if you don't ever connect to that, well, then they can't seek you out, right? And those that figure this out and master the efficient ways to add value, to do that at scale. And by the way, even with generative AI, there's a lot of ways to do that doesn't require, again, hiring a team of writers. There's some great tools out there. But if you do that, you will find your marketing impact, and notice I said impact, will really skyrocket. So it's look carefully at the buyer's journey. Understand where those buyers, how they make decisions, get into their head, talk to them, really think carefully about those sales conversations you're having and what's behind them. And then just figure out, how can I add value? Maybe you can build a community. Maybe you can start a podcast. And you're like, yeah, but I want to talk about my product. No, you don't. You want to be the host of the party and you want to have somebody there who brings the rich and the famous people there. And I'm a nobody. But guess what? The way a party works is, as long as it's a good party, everybody wants to meet the host. And so now you have these people who normally you would never get a chance to talk to, not only listening to you, but approaching you. And once that connection's made, then you have opportunities to, talk about how you can help them and, what their struggles are and, to walk them through a process that hopefully they will become a customer.
Love that. Well, we appreciate you being here so much today and sharing your wisdom and your journey with us.
Thank you.
And excited to have you on the show. Guys, don't forget, keep working on choreographing your business, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks for joining us today.
Want more business choreography?
Check out our website at bizchoreo.com to find out more.
And find out how the choreography for your marketing, operations, and sales can raise your revenue and create more impact.
Remember, every business needs choreography.